Welcome back to the living room, everyone. Happy Easter. My name is Joe Young, and just wanted to put out an Easter message for you guys. Hope you guys are having fun out there. Easter egg hunt, kids, parties, balloons, whatever it is. But let's take a moment to just reflect on the meaning of Easter, or even more simply, what does this day mean to us in a tangible way? I thought about doing a message where I could go on a long diatribe, theologically, going through the events of Jesus' life and then everything that went on with the cross and the 3 days after the cross, and then his reappearance, his resurrection, which is what we're really celebrating on Easter, right? The resurrection part. After he spends 3 days, according to the Bible, he spends 3 days in the spiritual world. And all that ensues was quite amazing. You know, the disciples had spiritual experiences encountering Jesus for many, many, many days after he was crucified. But I thought, let's take this message a little bit more on a practical tip. Maybe it'll be a shorter message, but we'll see about that. I always say that, and it never happens. But I thought, what does this day actually mean to me? What does it actually mean to us? What do we take out of this day that's more than just a history lesson? Like, more than just let's study a timeline of things that happened. Let's take something away from it today. And so, to set that up, I want to begin with just restating, reframing that, especially on the Living Room Ministry, one of our big goals is to create restored families, restored people. In fact, that's really the deeper meaning of the word salvation. Salvation is not, a little card that you just grab so that you got your fast food ticket into heaven because you went through the correct drive-through. What we really want is a restored world for God. Doesn't God deserve that? I think he does. So salvation is really just, I really see it as restoration. It's really just, I want to be a restored man. I want a restored version of a family that is like in a Garden of Eden, as it were, right? A heavenly family and a heavenly world around me. So that's what we're going for. We're going from a place of ignorance, a place of confusion, lots of chaos. We want to take this world and bring it into a place of being healed, being restored. So how does Easter relate to that main big goal for us? And that's kind of the topic. It's important to remember that, Jesus, it's funny, this sentence never occurred to me until literally thinking about this message just within the last day or two. But Jesus was a man of incredible surrender. He surrendered himself to God's will. And the biggest evidence of that is when he was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane not to go to the cross. And yet, working through that and bargaining and pleading with God, he ends up doing what God wanted. He ends up doing the will of God. And it's a fascinating thing. I believe that the Bible actually has a very interesting little parable that points to what Jesus was praying about in the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, this is not a well-known theological idea here, but I really want you to pray on this. I think there's some big insight here. Jesus in the book of Luke tells a interesting little parable that seems to have, I don't know, maybe not that much of a lesson in it, but I think this is a key into what Jesus was praying about in the garden. I'll kind of skim through this parable with you. He told this parable: a man had a fig tree growing in his vineyard, and he went to look for the fruit on it, but he didn't find any. So he said to the man who took care of the vineyard, "Hey, for 3 years I've been coming to look for fruit on this fig tree and haven't found any. Cut it down. Why should we use up the soil?" And, "Sir," the man replied, "leave it alone for 1 more year, and I'll dig around it and I'll fertilize it. If it bears fruit next year, fine. If not, cut it down." And I was praying on this, really thinking about this parable relating to Easter. It's amazing. The owner of the vineyard saying, "Look, you've had 3 years and hasn't bared any fruit here." And the person taking care of the vineyard is saying, "Please, Mr. Owner, give me 1 more year." And I believe that is exactly the prayer between Jesus and God in Gethsemane. Jesus had 3 years of ministry, and God was telling him, "Look, Jesus, it's time. There's no faith here. Been total lack of faith. It's time to go the way of the cross so that you can have a certain kind of victory on the cross." And Jesus is saying, "Look, no, I'll put fertilizer on it. I'll dig around. I'll try 1 more year. Give me 1 more year, God." I really believe that's the prayer. And unfortunately, there really wasn't faith. The disciples fell asleep, and we know a lot of the rest of that story. I'd love to go on more about that story. But that's an incredible man of surrender, is it not? Like, "Look, give me more time to get this ministry off the ground." Heck, I can relate to that feeling. I need more time to get living room off the ground, that's for sure. But Jesus was a man of surrender. And that is an incredible point, because that's the very thing Lucifer could never do. Satan could not get with God's plan back in the beginning in the Garden of Eden. He wanted to do his own thing. He didn't want to go under and serve pipsqueak Adam and Eve. But because of Jesus' ability to totally trust God's plan and God's will, and to go through the cross with a complete victory in the heart. It really wasn't so much about his body as much as it was about his heart. He was a perfected man with no grudge in his heart. Because he did that, he was able to die a perfected man and open a way for all humankind to kind of graft onto him, graft onto his spirit. Now there was proof. It's kind of like God had undeniable proof. "Look, Satan, my son is with me. You don't own this lineage. These children are mine." And so when we grab onto Jesus, we have, many people have, a transformation process. They surrender their lives to something higher. And there's many stories of people just completely having healings and miracles in their life when they get this power of the example and spirit of Jesus. So we have to remember, that's really the love of Jesus, is that surrender to God, surrender to what the Father wants, even if it was a terrible thing to go through the cross. So you kind of wonder, Satan really wants to stop us from latching on to this power that Jesus had. Satan exercised all the power he had to kill Jesus. And that is actually kind of what enabled God to say, "Well, this is my son, and he's a perfect man." And the resurrection part, the Easter part that we're talking about here, is really kind of just proof. It's kind of just a proof that Satan did not kill Jesus. He corrupted Adam. He corrupted Eve, but he could not corrupt Jesus. The resurrection is just like a glorious, really glorious occasion that proves that Jesus did not die spiritually. There is life after death, and that you don't have to die spiritually, which means cutting your heart off from God. You can be totally one with God. You can be totally connected with God's heart and be completely alive with that love. So Satan wants us, and this world just in general, wants us to not realize that there is so much energy and so much hope in the fact that Jesus went through what he did. What's stopping us? It's kind of a big question on my mind all the time. What's stopping us from being more restored? What's the block? And the two things that come to me were, what Satan uses the most is two things. He uses lies, deceptions, and the other thing he uses is your wounds. Any past hurts that linger around, they are now your Achilles heel, right? They're the trigger. Usually when you are at your worst, it's because you got triggered by something. It's kind of easy to be great at your best. It's hard to be great at your worst, and that's usually when you're triggered, usually when something's poking something that hurts, something that's a wound. For instance, I know for me, getting looked down on as a kid or something might have been a wound, and then that could be a trigger for me in the present or the future. Definitely was in the past. But there's a profound thing that we keep forgetting, which is true love makes all wounds disappear easily. That's a wonderful quote from Reverend Moon. True love makes all wounds disappear easily. So really what we need is the love and grace of God to heal the wounds. And now you don't have so much foothold to Satan. He doesn't really have wounds that he can poke and turn you into the worst jerk version of yourself. There's a wonderful Bible verse that says, "Do not let the sun go down on your anger, for that gives the devil a foothold." Isn't that interesting? Repressing and pushing down anger gives Satan a way to control you. What do we got to do? We got to heal the wounds and the hurts. It's not about blaming. It's not about getting even. It's about letting the grace and love of God in. And that creates the healing. And you know what? Jesus is the most vivid and perfect example of someone we can really relate to, even pray to, even dialogue with, in your mind, in your heart. He absolutely did what he did because he loves you. So why don't we let that love in a little bit? Think about that love, that he really cared about your connection to God more than he cared about his own life, infinitely more. I love this beautiful phrase in this oldie church song. It's not a hip song by any means, but it's Battle Hymn of the Republic. But the third verse, I love the third verse, and I almost don't remember all the words, but it starts with, "In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea." And he transfigures you and me. And then the last lines of this third verse are my favorite of the whole song. "As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. Our God is marching on." What an amazing song. And I realized something. He died to make us holy. So, whoa, wait a second here. Has my mind getting blown a little bit? We should not spend so much time on Easter talking about Jesus' death. We should be talking about how to make us holy. That's the point of what Jesus went through. It's kind of like, if some parents pay for a kid's college tuition, we're going to pay for your medical school, son. What's the expectation? Well, they got to graduate. They got to, and it's not just graduate, but get a job, right? Be a doctor. There's an expectation. There's an expectation that comes with the cross. We shouldn't really be talking so much about Jesus' resurrection and he's so amazing. And I'm not taking anything away from that. I've thought about Jesus my whole life. But the thing that he did it for is he was hoping that you and me would become holy men and women. That's the reason he did it. Look at this verse, John 4:9. It's a very biblical centric message here, but it really goes to this point. Here's John 4:9. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. And I was like reading this, and the word might really jumps off the page. We might do that. That's the second half. In a way, it's like the cross isn't over. It's like the second half. The point of it was that you and me become men and women of restoration, that we become transformed, that we become holy. Isn't that a beautiful thing? It's on you. It's almost like you and me are part of the second coming. This mission is not fulfilled until you and me decide to become men and women who are holy. And I'm sorry, but this really, we got to dispel the idea that going into a certain church, doing a certain ritual, doing a certain ceremony, praying a certain way, those things are just it. That's your golden ticket. Guys, we all need to be holy. We need to be restored. That's the point and the hope. And Jesus set the example. He's telling us today it is possible to become men and women of true love. He told his disciples, you're going to do more than me. The Bible says he was the firstborn of many. We got to really believe. And I've met some great people who are great members of churches, and it's almost like they don't actually believe that they can be men and women of real unconditional love. I am here to cheer you on the other way. Let's be holy. Let's not make Easter Sunday all about the wounds of Jesus' body. Let's make it about healing the wounds in my heart, in my soul. When we heal those wounds, when we latch on to the truth that God never lets go of your hand, and He loves you like a son, like a daughter, holding you even like a newborn baby in His arms. That's the kind of love God has for you, and we got to let that in, and we got to feel the healing of all the wounds in us. Let's make that, and then we bring that to Jesus and we say, thank you, Jesus. What you did was worth it. We took you up on it. We completed what you offered to us. That's my plea to you today, and I hope that you could take that with you as something tangible. Recommit yourself to being a man and woman of true love, of healing, of restoration. Don't get down on yourself if we're far away from it. We're all on the journey. I'm still a long way from finished, okay? But let's keep taking a step forward every day. So until next time, God bless.